Hello there, my very good friends. Andy here for WhatCulture Wrestling, and it is time for another one of our lovely wee chats about the rising power in American professional wrestling, AEW. Fyter Fest is on the way. It's at the end of the month, and while it will be a significantly smaller show than Double or Nothing, it's still a very, very important step in AEW's development, particularly in terms of forging an identity. In these early stages, AEW officials have made a concerted effort to put their product over as something closer to the wrestling that they loved back in the day, rather than the type that has come to dominate the mainstream since WCW went bye-bye back in 2001. And when the promotion announced their US TV deal with TNT just a short while ago, they did so with a press release that essentially positioned them as the antithesis to modern WWE. I think that the best way to illustrate this is just by reading a few choice quotes direct from the press release. So, here we go. AEW offers less scripted, soapy drama. Wrestlers will also be given more freedom to explore their characters and highlight their athletic abilities. And here's a big one. Introducing statistics for the first time ever, AEW will raise the stakes for its matches and deepen fan engagement by tracking each competitor's wins and losses as the wrestlers pursue championships, analysing their moves, assessing their damage to their opponents, and providing insights into their winning streaks. And here's the translation of that. AEW are essentially telling you that they won't have scripted promos, they won't have road agents churning out the matches, and wins and losses will matter. But here's the thing about AEW's current roster. It's very much TNA's antithesis, as much as it is WWE's. Now, Impact Wrestling is of course a much more respectable promotion than it was back in the day, but they're still not above hilarious self-owns, as we saw a couple of weeks ago when their network, Pursuit, accidentally aired the wrong episode of pre-taped television. Regardless, they are not a patch on vintage TNA, or, if you will, LOL TNA, which essentially destroyed itself as WWE's competition by trying to copy it. TNA, as we all know, would grab any and every WWE cast-off available to them, then try and reposition them as some kind of second coming. This worked for talented guys like Kurt Angle and Christian Cage, outstanding performers who really helped make a difference and really raise TNA's popularity. But for every one of those, there's 3 or 4 Orlando Jordans, Junior Fatus, Aaron Rexes. As well as inviting derision, this recruitment drive essentially stripped TNA of its identity as some kind of work rate-centric WWE alternative, and instead, it became a social club for ersatz versions of old WWE Midcarders. The thing about AEW's roster is that it's as notable for the performers it doesn't comprise of as the ones it does. For example, the company resisted the urge to go full TNA and pick up TJ Perkins and Austin Aries from the free agent market. Now, these guys are fantastic wrestlers, and Aries in particular is a real three-dimensional performer. He's charismatic as hell, and he's got real star power. But both of these guys carry a certain, shall we say, behavioural baggage that AEW probably decided they just didn't want to be associated with. On a similar note, over at the Wrestling Observer, Uncle Shagger Dave Meltzer has implied that all these WWE wrestlers dropping not-so-subtle hints that they might want to leave that company and go to AEW might be doing so in vain. It looks very much like AEW just isn't going to go out there and sign any ex-WWE wrestler that hits the market. Now, they will do so for the right talent. Of course they picked up a guy like Jon Moxley because he can make a difference, he can make a real impact for that promotion. But it's not some kind of weird Pokemon gotta catch 'em all vibe. This is all because AEW, if we are to take their words at face value, are intent on creating something new. And understanding the personnel and structure of AEW's talent roster is critical to understanding the promotion's philosophy as a whole. This roster is conspicuously low on established mainstream stars, and that's by design. Now, the very top of the AEW card features performers who are known to and adored by their core audience. Kenny Omega, the best bout machine, is generally regarded among the best performers in the world. And even if Will Ospreay might have surpassed him in that regard in 2019, Omega is driven and talented enough to retake the throne. The handsome and charismatic Hangman Page is an effing horse, as well as being a TV star on the wrong platform. Or at least he was. Now, Chris Jericho was a mite underwhelming in his performance against Kazuchika Okada at New Japan's Dominion this year, but this is a man defined by reinvention. He is constantly going out there to prove his doubters wrong, and there's no doubt he'll find a way to do it again. Cody has perfected and made fashionable an old-school style of wrestling that many lapsed fans mourn. The Young Bucks, both as state-of-the-art athletes and underrated psychologists, are at this stage in their careers the best possible version of every great tag team. Jon Moxley, well, he's the hottest thing in wrestling right now. If you cast your minds back to 2011 when he was standing in a dilapidated FCW warehouse, he was promising to rip through the very fabric of professional wrestling as a whole. Finally, in 2019, he's doing it. And what ties these guys together? Well, each of them is either approaching their prime or in it right now, and Jericho is the rule-proving exception. This main event scene oozes qualities, star power, charisma, aura, versatility, established quality, and potential alike. But it's the emerging undercard that holds the secret to AEW's success. Now, the roster has caused a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of dismay among certain circles. Some are concerned, and understandably so, that the lack of marquee names doesn't really fly with AEW's mainstream ambitions. Philosophies don't draw, astute marketing doesn't draw, and potential doesn't draw. Pro wrestling is a star-driven business, and at this stage, the AEW roster is comprised more of relative unknowns than it is household names. But that very undercard exists in order to accentuate the Moxleys, the Omegas, and the Pages, and it is largely free of that ex-WWE stench. Indie standout Jungle Boy is just 22 years old. He's skinny and raw, sure, but he's also engaging and stylish, and his pretty boy looks, babyface guile, and untapped charisma really set him apart. He's going to be a veritable sympathy generator when the likes of Jon Moxley or MJF absolutely thrash him, and it looks like that tag team with Luchasaurus is going to be bags of fun. On the subject of MJF, he is wrestling's next big super heel in waiting, and at just 23 years old, he can absorb losses to the stars. Darby Allin generates sympathy from his do-or-die approach, and he's got a really marketable alt look, and he bumps like an absolute psycho as well, meaning that when he does lose, he's going to make his opponents look like absolute killers. And then there's my personal favourite, Luchasaurus. I mean, just look at him. Just look at him. He's a goddamn lucha dinosaur. What more could you possibly want? Over on the heel side, we've got the cocky Sammy Guevara, who is an act more of promise than credentials, and he's got an oh-so-punchable face. Progressive and sports-oriented, AEW is a long way removed from WWE's lionized Attitude Era. But as a genuine youth movement, its freshness may compel viewers to tune in as this unmissable new exciting thing. Diving back into the roster now, in any legit sport, there's an average team, an average player. And guess what? AEW in kayfabe terms is going to have bagloads of those as well. Christopher Daniels has long been an outstanding performer, and he's had a decades-long career full of glittering accomplishments. In AEW, he's probably going to be something of a 50-50 player. He has all the tricks and expertise required to beat the young guns, but probably lacks the durability to keep up with them in the long term. And of course, his past career and everything great he's done in the wrestling business means he's going to be an incredible scalp for the likes of MJF to claim on their road to the top. Shima is a similar example, and meanwhile, the former Dragon Gate Legends compatriot Michael Nakazawa is clever and slippery enough to win every now and then, but lacks the seriousness to do it at main event level. On top of this, the mix of refined veterans and raw rookies is reflected in the tag division as well, which is bookended by the Young Bucks and their private party disciples. Now, much has been made of AEW's wins and losses matter MO and whether or not it's actually tenable. And I believe that looking at this deceptively ingenious roster comes up with the answer. It's a yes. The gulf here between emerging talent and established veterans allows for an inbuilt win-loss logic. If one of the veterans is wrestling one of the relative rookies and the veteran wins, well, if the loser shows enough endeavour in defeat and then comes back smarter next time with a whole manner of tactical improvements, it doesn't matter that they lost that first match because they've already gotten over. They've improved you can invest in them. Meanwhile, in Victory, the aura of the veterans is reinforced, and that keeps the main event scene going for the short term. And when all of this is subverted in years to come and the rookies start toppling the veterans, the audience will know just how hard they've worked in order to climb the ladder. Wins and losses will matter within the narrative, but they won't adversely affect on the character's integrity. And this makes sense both as a strategy and a creative endeavor. In 2019, a Jungle Boy victory over Kenny Omega just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because they're at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But in, say, 2022, a few years from now, it could be a huge moment. And the diversity of AEW's roster makes all kinds of long-term storytelling possibilities just like this very possible. And that's exciting. It's a hierarchy of sorts, and it's integrated into the fabric of a TV show format to produce a mutually beneficial system. Now, what I'm about to say here isn't necessarily a criticism of WWE, it's more a comparison that strengthens this argument. The greed of WWE's recruitment strategy, coupled with Vince McMahon's increasingly erratic wins, have created a system in that company where championship caliber wrestlers are trading arbitrary wins with no real meaning. It's an all-star league that produces very few stars because stars, by definition, are special, not the norm. AEW has assembled a roster that can afford to take losses and, in defeat, earn even more than they would in victory. In the short term, wins and losses matter, and in the long term, tracking the journeys of those who eventually get over will be extremely rich and rewarding. AEW has invested in a youth movement, the genius of which will compel you to invest in turn. And that's it, our spicy hot take on AEW's roster complexion and what it means for their general philosophy going forward. And now that I'm done rabbiting on, I would urge you to head over to WhatCulture.com and check out the awesome article on which this is based, written by my good friend Michael Sidgwick. It's a tremendous read, and the link will be down below. And of course, once you've done that, you can sound off in the comment section, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe. And of course, ring the bell for notifications. I've been Andy, and I'll see you later.